This is Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl. Here's your host, Eric Wilson.
Welcome to Season 10 of Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl. That's fun to say. What an exciting time. Back in May, we crowned another new champion. That's right, after 7 straight seasons of the Auburn Knights owning our tournament, back-to-back new champions. Season 8 was Belvedere North. This past season, the Indians from Winnebago. Over the summer, our middle schoolers once again got a chance to show off their stuff. Congrats to Keith Country Day on their victory. And as we look ahead to this milestone year, we go into the first round with 15 unique matchups. That means every game you see in the first round of Season 10 is fresh. None of the teams facing one another have squared off before, and with close to 300 games under our belts, that is not easy to do. But first, back to that Season 9 finale. Since there are no ties in Quiz Bowl, one question is the closest a game can end, and the Indians and Knights delivered a nail-biter. Watch. With both of these teams being involved from Season 1, this is somehow the first time they've ever played each other. So we have no idea what to expect, but when you look at those high scores, expect a lot of questions to be answered correctly. What executive order issued January 1st, 1863 applied to states in which the people whereof, Carson?
Emancipation Proclamation.
That is correct. Go ahead, Sam.
Walgreens.
Walgreens is correct. Sam?
Plasma.
That's correct. Go ahead, Alex.
Teotihuacan.
You got it. Teotihuacan. Auburn's on the board now. Merrick.
Brittany Griner.
That's right. What an exciting beginning to our Season 9 finale here at Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl. Winnebago's off to a very strong start, 120 to Auburn's 30, and we just want to point out that when you get to this level of the game, this may not surprise you, but in that entire round, we only had one question that did not get answered by either of our teams. So, Sam, your categories are Greek mythological moms, places of death, or starts with 3.
Places of death.
Did y'all see how Carson and Sam and Merrick were like, places of death? And Charlotte was like, okay. Name the current U.S. state where these American historical figures died. John F. Kennedy.
Texas.
Correct. Given a figure from Greek myth, name their mother. Pegasus. She gave birth after she was
Medusa.
decapitated. Correct. We now have a 40-point game. And in our next round, that is basically 2 questions worth, because each question in our final challenge is worth 20 points. Hands on your buzzers. And we just want to say really quickly that no matter what happens, you should all be very proud of where you're at right now, because it's not easy to make it to this point. You know that there are people in the audience who are super proud of you. The graph of the function y equals the absolute value of x most nearly resembles, Sinesio.
V.
That's right, the letter of the alphabet that we needed. Auburn gets the first points in the final challenge. Dylan.
A woodpecker.
That's right, Sinesio.
Pagliacci.
That is correct. Merrick.
Singapore.
That's right, Sinesio.
Lactose.
That is right, that's the disaccharide we needed. We're moving on. Sam.
Falstaff.
That is correct. Alex.
The Hague.
The Hague is right. Sam.
Swallowing.
Swallowing is correct. Alex.
Common sense.
That is right. Merrick.
United Arab Emirates.
Incorrect. Worth a guess, but we are out of time. With a score of 300 points, Winnebago is the champion for Season 9 in Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl. And I just want to point out, I don't know if we can get a shot of both of these teams at the same time, but if you're not in the audience, you didn't know, or if you're not here, you didn't notice this, Auburn led the applause for Winnebago winning that game. 20 points, 1 question. That's as close as you can get. After the break, we go back to the beginning to talk with the guys who put the Bergstrom in Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl. Long before I was involved with Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl, Dave Rydell and his team at Bergstrom were. I recently sat down with the chairman of the board to hear what made him jump at the chance to be involved with the show and why he believes the show is important. And we'll hear about some of his favorite moments. So Dave, I want to start with you.
Okay.
10 years. This is our 10th season of Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl. Remind us why it was so important 10 years ago to get this all started.
Well, it was 10 years ago when WTVO approached us about doing something on TV. And they came up with this educational game, which we all agreed was fantastic. And we thought it was fantastic because this would showcase students in our community who are exceptional at what they do. I mean, we showcase athletes, and that's great, but let's showcase the academic side too. And as we know, it's been a fantastic ride for the last 10 years.
Thanks for joining us on this very first game of the Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl. Boy, we have something really exciting planned for you folks over the next couple of months. Great competition from some of the best and the brightest in the state line.
Why do you think it's so important to give those kids that attention?
Well,
being smart?
I think it's important to give these young people the attention because normally they don't get it. And I think they should be recognized for what it is they have achieved. I mean, the questions they can answer are incredible. You read them, and I'm not sure you know the answers, you see them, but they are really something else.
Sometimes I have the answer in front of me and I'm not sure why it's the answer and I just go with it because I have no chance that I would get that correct without the answer in front of me. Dan, you haven't been here from the beginning, but you've been here for quite a long time. You've been to some of our episodes recording. What are some of your takeaways from watching the gameplay in action?
You know, it's always impressive to see these kids that, like you were just saying, the answers are not... We wouldn't know those answers. I've even read some of the questions for the show and I couldn't have answered them. But it's impressive to see the enthusiasm, the support the kids give to one another. So it's just a fun thing to be involved with.
Well, so then in your words, then why is this so important? How do you feel being associated as, part of Bergstrom? How do you feel about being associated with the Quiz Bowl?
It's great to be doing something that highlights what's good in the community. You hear and you see so much on the news about the bad kids or the negative things in the community, and this really highlights what's good and shows the really positive things that are going on in the Rockford area. So we're very proud. Our company really is community oriented, and we're proud to be involved with this and to showcase the really good parts of the Rockford area.
What about you, Dave? Are there any moments from all of the games? You've seen a lot of them. Are any moments from any of the games that stick out to you?
Well, I mean, there are moments when one question could have determined who the victor was when we got down to the end. I'm not sure about any other particular moments, but they're always exciting, and I'm always impressed. And I think the show kind of perpetuates itself because every year you've got new students, so new mom and dads, new grandma and grandpa, new sister and brother, and that keeps building. And as we know, the show has just been a fantastic success story over the last decade.
And the show itself clearly is pretty popular, but how has Bergstrom's connection to the show raised the awareness of Bergstrom in the community?
Well, I would say, Bergstrom is a much more recognizable name in the community now than it was 10 years ago. Not that we sought that. We wanted to sponsor a show that we thought was great. But in the meantime, I mean, there have been students from the show who have worked at Bergstrom in the summertime in our programs, and some have joined the company, so that's benefited us. But we did this specifically for the community to showcase the outstanding young people that live here in Rockford.
Our internship class last year were all local kids, and they all mentioned we have a little end of the summer presentation that they do to talk about what they've accomplished while spending the summer at Bergstrom, and every one of them mentioned the Quiz Bowl. Some of their siblings had participated, so they recognized Bergstrom first through the Quiz Bowl, and now having worked for us, it was even more that they could identify with the community, and hopefully they'll come back. They're all students in Illinois universities, and so we're hoping to bring them back next summer and hopefully employ them in the future, help keep the kids in the community.
It's always fun catching up with Dave and Dan. Great guys, maybe even better partners. Speaking of catching up, when we come back, I get the opportunity to chat with the guy who provided many of us here on our Quiz Bowl production team one of our favorite Quiz Bowl memories of all time. All right, some quick backstory. I wasn't part of the first 2 seasons of Quiz Bowl. I came on board in season 3. And if you ask me my favorite moment from my time behind the podium, season 4, game 9, Keith Country Dave versus Harlem would be near the top of the list. It's when we all met then 8th grader Cooper Rowe. Cooper, welcome back. Sort of, right? It's not quite face to face like we're used to. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys so much for having me. It really is a pleasure to be back.
Oh, are you kidding? We're excited that you had time for us. Let's get caught up, shall we? What have you been, now this is kind of a loaded question. We could probably talk an hour about this, but what have you been doing since your Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl days? You're in your first year of college, right?
Yes, I am. 4 years of high school, which I did out in Connecticut. Then I took a nice gap year between high school and college, and now I'm starting my freshman year at Columbia University in New York City, where I intend to be a history major and hopefully grab a minor in linguistics for fun, you know?
Yeah, just for fun. While you're there, right? Why not?
Yeah.
And you mentioned that gap year. Some people take a gap year to, just kind of chill and think about what they want to do. You were pretty busy. You came back to town. You were actually the assistant coach at Keith for a while, weren't you, on the Quiz Bowl team? How'd that go?
Oh my gosh. It was it was so much fun to be back coaching at Keith. Just because, being on the other side of things. I owe so much to Coach Kristen Burns at Keith Country Day School. She was my mentor for the longest time, and I want to go in education. I want to go into education, all things considered, as a job, and following after her, just being such an influential role model in me. Not only starting my love for Quiz Bowl, but starting my love for history, and starting my love for helping other people and helping them realize the best versions of themselves.
Let's talk about Coach Burns a little bit. She gave me a little backstory about how you got into Quiz Bowl, and if the story's correct, so your brother Spencer was in 6th grade, right? You were in 3rd grade. Quiz Bowl had just started at Keith, and you kind of had to tag along because your brother, you had to wait for and get a ride with your brother, right? So
younger siblings, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what little brothers do. And so you at some point asked Coach Burns if you could try it out. And apparently you were awesome at it. Tell me how that went down.
The story's pretty correct, yeah.
What did Spencer think of that?
Right, Spencer, yeah, he was there. I was more in it.
He was there.
He was there. I mean, he was.
And then at that point, you were on the middle school team, right, in 3rd grade?
Yeah, I mean, Mrs. Burns pulled some strings and let me and negotiated with some of the older players who weren't too happy to be with like a, what was I, fourth grader, third grader at that time.
That should have been inspiration for them to play better, right? And no strings needed, but you were an 8th grader when you competed in our high school, because when you played Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl for us, we didn't have a middle school division. We do now, but we didn't. And so as an 8th grader, you played on that team. How was that intimidating for you at all to be playing against these high school kids who some of them were 5 years older than you?
Wasn't too intimidating, to be perfectly honest. I remember playing with Jacob McMuse, and he's cool as a cucumber. Like, probably the most comfortable person I've ever seen on screen. So I just tried to take after his lead and just kind of stand up straight, look good.
Speaking of fun, you are part of one of the most fun moments in the crew, our staff, one of the most fun moments in Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl history that we all remember. I'm sure you know I'm talking about. 8th grade Cooper was playing on the Quiz Bowl team, and the lightning category famous battles showed up. Do you remember that moment? What was going through your head?
It's hard to forget that moment, mostly because my dad loved showing me the video at every possible opportunity. He loved being like, "You remember that?" I'm like, "Yes, Dad, I remember that." But he's like, "Oh, well, let's watch it again." I remember, it was battles or books of the Bible.
The 2 categories that you have to choose from, and Keith, since you won the toss, you will get to choose from these. Jacob, your captain, so you will make the decision. The categories are books of the Bible or battles.
Yeah, we're going to go battles.
Based on Cooper's enthusiasm, that was probably a good choice.
And I was pretty happy to hear battles. I was 8th grade. I loved military history. I loved World War II. I was reading those books and all that. The first question was, you name the battle, and we're supposed to give the country where it was fought. You say Hastings.
England.
Correct.
And I said England, and there's this very brief moment when I look up, like, oh my God, I'm supposed to have said the United Kingdom. I just rooted. I was like, oh, battles, battles, battles. And I get the first question wrong, and I just kind of panicked. You took it because it was right in the end, but that was just such a rush. I mean, that was like heaven and earth like aligned for me on my first appearance as this nervous 8th grader to get that pet category of mine. And took off, didn't look back.
Well, the excitement was contagious, and we, just like your dad, we love watching it over and over again. Cooper, thanks so much for taking the time to catch up with us. Really appreciate it. And you come visit us anytime, okay, when you're in town.
Will do. Thank you so much, Mr. Wilson.
Big thanks to Keith coach Kristen Burns for reuniting us with Cooper, and best of luck to Cooper. We can't wait to see where his journey takes him. After a quick timeout, a couple of familiar faces from season 1. Stick around.
I'm Nick Toma. You might remember me as the host for the first 2 seasons of the Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl. Congratulations go out to Eric Wilson and the entire crew for 10 seasons. That's an amazing accomplishment. I remember those early rehearsals in a conference room at WTVO. Honestly, I didn't think we'd pull it off. There were so many things that could go wrong with it, but we had great leadership and a confident group of producers who knew it would work. Thanks for joining us on this very first game of the Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl. Boy, we have something really exciting planned for you folks over the next couple of months. Great competition from some of the best and the brightest in the state line. And of course, the stars of the show were always those student athletes. To think that the first season of students are now well beyond college and having incredible careers and lives on their own. So here's to another season of questions and answers, wishing all of you in front of the camera and behind the scenes a wonderful and competitive season.
Always nice to see and hear from Nick Toma. At the start of the show, I mentioned that season 9 finale. Sylvia Diaz played for Belvedere North in the season 1 finale, and get this, she's back here in the state line, making a difference. Sylvia, it's good to see you.
It's great to see you. Hello.
It's kind of weird too, I guess, because I was not part of seasons 1 and 2. It's like we're meeting for the first time, but virtually on this giant screen here in the studio. Thanks so much for taking time for us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, anytime.
So it's been 10 years since you've played Quiz Bowl, or well, 9 years because you played in seasons 1 and 2, but of course you were part of that inaugural season. What have you been up to since?
So since I had a weird start to my post-graduated life, I came back to Belvedere to finish out my senior year from my childhood bedroom because of a pandemic. So I had a rocky start entering the job market, but since then I found my footing in college access, and right now I'm helping non-traditional adult students get into college for early childhood education.
So you're talking, so was it, you said in grad school, that was during COVID when you went to grad school?
No, I was in undergrad during the pandemic, so I finished out my last year. Very unique situation, but I know that a lot of us were in that boat.
Yeah, it was a crazy year for everybody too. So you work for the YWCA in town, right?
Yes, YWCA, Northwestern Illinois.
What do you do for the YW?
I'm their higher education navigator, so very much focused on helping folks go to college and figure out what that trajectory looks like.
How rewarding is that for you to help people find that path?
It's everything, especially as a first-generation low-income college graduate myself. It's giving people the supports that I wish I had when I was going through that process.
So how did you choose that field? Obviously, you went from high school, you went to college. Where did you end up going to college?
So I ended up attending the University of Chicago, and not too far, but plenty of distance to just get that on-campus experience. And there, I really tried my hand at a few different subjects. I declared a math major. I ended up going with history. I wrote a thesis. I did research. But I really fell into college access and that work after graduation when I was job shopping, and I stumbled upon an opportunity through the state of Illinois, working for the Illinois Student Assistance Commission, which was very cool. And I'm kind of just in this role locally, doing that work, but in a much more targeted way, which I I find really fulfilling.
The community is lucky to have you. What do you remember from that first season?
It was a very unexpected thing. That the State Line would even want to attempt a TV show around an extracurricular that we all were very passionate about, but we thought was relegated more to Wednesday afternoons after school had happened, or on Saturday morning tournaments in the suburbs. So it was really unexpected, but we jumped into it. I know that my entire Belvedere North team was super excited to do anything Quiz Bowl, so we jumped in, and it was a lot of fun. It was a unique experience, to say the least, because we went from playing in classrooms with any sort of buzzer system to having cameras and lights and being on a stage. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
It was pretty new for everybody, even us here. Nobody really knew that. I can't imagine everybody or anybody thought that it would last as long as it has, and we're still going strong 10 years later. What did you think when you found out that a couple of seasons ago, Belvedere North actually won the whole tournament? How'd you feel learning about that? And that is the last question of the game. 300 points. It hasn't happened for 7 seasons, but Belvedere North Blue Thunder is the new champion for Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl.
I have all the love and admiration for that team that won it. I remember seeing the update come through on Facebook, so being part of that Scholastic Bowl Facebook page that Belvedere North has, and it was super exciting. And I'm like, I have a lot of pride coming from B North and thinking like, yeah, they brought home a championship, well deserved.
What's next for you? What are your future
For
plans?
Me, just keep on keeping on. I try to take it day by day. I felt like I lived a very accelerated life and always pushing myself. And while still doing that, I'm just trying to enjoy the simple things, especially after the last few years. I think it's important to stop and smell the flowers and take stock that I have loved ones around me, and I have a job that I enjoy, and I have opportunities ahead of me. But we'll see what comes.
Well, Sylvia, I already mentioned that the community is lucky to have you back here. And thank you for everything that you do, and the people you are guiding through education as well. They're lucky to have you around. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Hey, thank you so much.
So great chatting with Sylvia. You know, part of the fun that we have here on Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl is watching our students grow up as they play our game and become young adults. It's so much fun to see that happen. We'll be back and finish up this Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl preview show right after this. Welcome back to the Bergstrom State Line Quiz Bowl Season 10 preview show. I want to thank our friends at Bergstrom for sharing their time with us. Also, big thanks to Cooper and Sylvia. It's always fun to get the chance to see what former players are up to who've joined us for this now decade-long journey. Hard to believe. I was a fan of the show before I got the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, so I want to give a quick shout out to Nick Toma for paving the way. Lastly, thank you for joining us every week for the past 9 seasons. As I mentioned before, round 1 of Season 10 features 15 unique matchups, never seen these before. And to kick things off, it's Pecatonica versus Ashton Franklin Center. Will Season 10 bring us another new champion? We'll find out in May. Have a great week. Stay safe.